Our first guest is Vanessa Miller Pierce. She writes under Vanessa Miller.
I know her.
Mm-hmm. She she is no stranger to Black Authors Matter TV, and she seems like she's had two new books come out like back to back. I got confused about which ones they were. So I know the newest book is The Light on Halsey Street. Mm-hmm. So Vanessa, welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it does seem like I've been writing a whole lot here lately. It's like I took off for a while, and now it's like, oh my goodness,
boom, boom,
it's all
coming
out one by one.
Well, that's
a good
really
thing.
Great. It is good. It's really great that you're so prolific and you picked it back up. I admire people who are able to do that. And I'm in the final production stages of my book. And my sequel, I got my covers redone. I'm excited about that. Mm-hmm. And this is the longest book I've ever written. So anyway.
What's the word count?
I am almost at 70,000 words. And I had never thought I would write that many words, but it kept coming and coming and coming. You know, you have to tell the story. So, So I give homage to you all that can just like in 6 months do that many words or more than that.
Right. I will tell you, when I first decided to come back into traditional publishing, the most word count I had done before something good was probably about 75,000 words. And so the contract, when we received the first contract, it said 90,000 words. And it said 90,000 to 100,000. And I was like, I told my agent, I was like, can we ask them, for a lower word count? I said, I'm going to try to get to 90 because that's what they want. I said, but let's ask for 80. And so then the contract came back and said 80 to 90. When I turned the book in, I think I turned it in at about 95,000 words. So I was pretty happy with myself. And so now I've been doing about a little over 90 with each of the books. But it took a learning curve because to me that's a lot of words. Now I have a friend, Vanessa Riley.
Yes.
Who writes 100 and some thousand words, but when you haven't been doing that, there's a learning curve because you want to make sure that the book stays interesting.
Right. Because it can get boring. All those
words just to write words.
I would say that this is a mark of our maturity as writers, because I remember my first anthology, I was working with a lot of first-time authors, and they had a heart attack when I told them that the book had to be between 5 and 10,000, or not the book, but the story had to be between 5 and 10,000 words. They were like, how am I going to get up to 5,000 words? And now here we are complaining about 9,000.
That's true. Until you do it. And my last 6 books, I lose count. They have been children's books. Mm-hmm. They're like 1,200 words.
Correct.
So 1,500 maybe. So I had, my other book, the book I'm finishing is a sequel. So the first book was only 40,000 words. So so this one is long, but it took that, and I just really I love the way you, not only when you do your books, I like the way that you communicate with your fans. That's your videos and how you're transparent.
I agree with that. I think I've been on your mailing list for quite a while, and I love the way you sound very personable. You don't sound salesy. You sound like you're just catching your friends up on what you have going on. And I think that's the way a mailing list should be.
Right. And my mailing list, I try to be short and to the point with my mailing list because I feel like people don't want to spend all this time, reading all this stuff. I want them to spend the time reading the book. And so I try to go, okay, this is what they need to know. This is what they need to know. This right here. But, I do feel like my readers have become my friends over the years because, we talk back and forth. Facebook has been a wonderful thing for that because you get to talk back and forth. Mm-hmm. And there were so many people who showed up at my tour just recently because, they've been reading me for years. And I'm so thankful for people who take the time to read my books. I'm just grateful. And so, yeah.
I saw your one of your, I'm not on your mailing list. I guess I haven't
well, I'm not sure if I'm still on either because I'm actually speaking from memory because I was on it before, but if I'm not on it, send me the link so I can get back on it, please.
Okay.
But what I do is I see your live when you do your live videos on Facebook, and you just do the updates, or you have pictures of your signings and things like that, which I really like the way you communicate with your readers.
I appreciate that because you never know if what you're doing is effective. And I'll tell you, one of the things that happened to me, I was in Maryland just this weekend. And
you were in Maryland and you didn't tell me. See, I don't even want you to finish your story.
Look, I'm telling everybody, I was constantly on Facebook, like, here's my events, here's where I'm gonna be. It was on my website, everything.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll give you that. I'm gonna let you finish.
See? And so but one of my readers came to the event with Riches and Reading. She did like a private book club and reader event for people who had pre-ordered Delight on Halsey Street. And she told me, she said, Vanessa, I watch everything that you put up. She said, I've been looking at the pictures and everything. She said, I've been really paying attention. She said, I really love, and you never know if people, because a lot of times necessarily people might not comment, but you don't know if they're really paying attention. And so that kind of really struck me like, okay, well, people are paying attention to what I'm putting out there. Cause it's like, I feel like it's my job to do it because I feel like if I'm going to write a book, and I've said this, I feel like it's malpractice if I don't tell anybody about it.
That's another good thing. And I'm glad you said that because it's a good reminder to many of the authors and business owners who are watching. Don't think just because people aren't commenting or liking that they're not paying attention, because right now, my two biggest clients that I have right now, one of them came from a referral from a lady who has never liked or commented on my stuff, but she called me and said, I have a referral for you. Yes. And the other person is somebody who's been knowing me for a while, but she does not comment all the time. She doesn't even post her own stuff all that much. Correct. But she contacted me and said, I want to work with you. So I say that to say, keep putting your best foot forward. Yeah. Because you never know who's watching. And just because they're not liking and commenting, it doesn't mean that they're not watching.
And you never, like you said, you never know what's going on behind the scenes. It's our job just to put in the work.
Exactly.
And,
and to produce quality.
Yes, always do things with quality.
And people are looking for quality. Now, Riley, I'll tell you something that happened and is related to the show that happened Sunday. I was on my way in church Sunday morning, and there's a man I know at church. I see him. I don't even know his name, but we always speak because we used to talk about football and basketball. But anyway, when I was on my way in, he said, yeah, I saw your podcast about entrepreneurship and business. The one we did with Devin Robinson, that one is really circulating.
Wait a minute, was he the one who said that Black businesses are not a charity? We need to stop saying supporting. I love that.
Right, yeah. And so this is somebody it was out of the blue. But he saw, somehow it circulates, people see things. Yeah. And he said what we were saying. You don't know who's seeing it. And that's good and bad. People who put out a lot of negative stuff and mess, they don't know who's seeing that either.
That's
You
true.
know?
That's true.
So, if your stuff is going to be circulating, it's better for it to be good. There used to be a saying that there's no such thing as bad publicity, but I think that was said before social media.
Yeah.
There is such a thing as bad publicity,
Yeah.
because one viral video or photo can ruin your whole reputation. And who knows how
there are
long it'll
some
take to
people
get
who
it
have
back
taken
down.
some bad publicity and been able to flip it. So if you're really good at PR and you know how to
Right.
flip it,
Now that can happen, but it's more people who just had their
Right.
careers ruined.
Yes. Yeah.
No, you're
And you don't
absolutely
even
right.
hear their names anymore.
Correct.
So, but anyway, Vanessa, tell us about now what we found in Hallelujah. That was the one right before.
Yeah,
Light
that
on
was
Halsey Street?
right before the Light on Halsey Street. And
Okay.
that one, What We Found in Hallelujah released in November. And so this one is September. So it's almost a year. in
Right.
between, but not
Right.
quite. But the next book is only about 5 months in between, because I have a book that will release in at the end of January. So it's really like a
That's the
February
Queen
release.
one?
Yes. So
Okay.
it does feel back to back. So
Yeah,
is
it
what
does.
is.
It does. And then we tried to get you on the show, but about What We Found in Hallelujah, but we couldn't get the timing right. And so then we ended up saying, well, we may as well get you on to talk about the new book then. So where is Halsey Street a real place?
Oh, absolutely. It is Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. The Light on Halsey Street is about basically Lewis and Halsey. And my husband and I just walked the streets of Lewis and Halsey last week. We went down there to do, I had an event in Bed-Stuy. It was supposed to be at Macon Library, which I mentioned in the book. And the reason I even wrote the book is because my husband grew up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And he came of age in the 80s in Brooklyn.
The 80s was a great time.
It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times because there was a lot that happened in the 80s.
Right. I know people say that about every generation, but I think the 80s was such a defining time period.
Yeah, it was good for me, but it was not. But it was not good for a lot of friends that I knew and grew up with, and then they ended up, in certain things that that they should not have been in because of the time period and what occurred in the 80s. And so I deal with that in the Light on Halsey Street as well, because I felt like I started the book in 1985. And the girls it's Dana and Lisa, and they're 18 years old, but the book spans almost 4 decades. So they're in their latter 50s when the book ends.
Right.
But if I was going to do a book in the 80s, I knew I could not be authentic without mentioning the crack epidemic that took hold in the 80s. That's why I say it was the best of times, but it was also the worst of times.
Yes.
And so Dana, her mother, is addicted to drugs, and she lives in a single parent household. But Lisa lives in a 2-parent household. Her father owns the corner store on the corner of Lewis and Halsey. And fun fact, my husband's father owned the corner store at the corner of Lewis and Halsey.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Was that a coincidence?
No, that's the reason why.
So you planned that.
He
told me so many stories about growing up in Brooklyn that one day he would sit and we would talk about it, and he would just tell me this happened and then this happened and this. And I told him, I said, I'm going to write about this place. And so I couldn't write about him because I write women's fiction. And so I wanted to bring in 2 women and do their story, but I also wanted to make Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn a character within the novel.
I love that.
And I've had several reviews come back and tell me they felt like Brooklyn was a character in the novel. And that was important to me, and it was very deliberate. And so, I just enjoyed writing. I enjoyed everything except writing the 80s, because the 80s, even though I grew up in the 80s, I had to research and research and research.
You forgot you were a kid in the 80s.
Right. And I couldn't say this store was there if it wasn't there.
Yeah.
No, I was 18 in 1985.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Just
Maybe
like
I was
they
a kid.
were. Yeah.
Well,
I wasn't
black
a
don't
kid.
crack, so you never know how.
It really
old you are.
doesn't. It really doesn't.
Right. And so, but I had to research because I grew up in Ohio, not in Brooklyn. And so there were areas we wanted to talk about, like the downtown Brooklyn. And I had to know where the stores were, and I had to know, how to get to the A train from this store. And I had to know, and a lot of those places aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And so it just took, my husband had to sit with me one day, and we actually, he printed out a map of the streets, and we studied it, and he was able to show me, okay, so if you're here, then you're going to be turning this way to go to here, and this is where Boys and Girls High School is, and then this is where 262 is, and
Right.
we had to do all of it.
I love that you guys took the time to do that, though, because people who are from that era and from that area, they know all of this. And if you had not taken the time to do that, they would have called you out.
Absolutely.
They don't like it when you get the facts wrong.
Oh, correct. I'm
That's
telling you,
true.
I've had, and I saw one reviewer, she said, I cannot believe she did not grow up in this area. Because it was like, I'm a storyteller. And I'm a researcher. I got to research to tell that story. And
Right.
so,
And it was helpful that your husband, he was able to give you a lot of.
I wouldn't have wrote the story if I did
Without
not
him.
actually have. I wouldn't have had the guts to try to write a Bed-Stuy Brooklyn story, because it's such an iconic area.
Right.
Without having not only my husband, his family grew up there, so I was calling them too, and I'm like, okay. Now, what about this? And just I had to get the understanding of just, how did people, respond to certain things in that, in that neighborhood? Because it was, they were telling me it was like a community feel. We don't have that community feel these days, but they had that community feel in the neighborhood. And so I wanted to show that, in the book.
I love it. And that community feel was real. Don't get caught by the neighbor doing something you're not supposed
That's
to
right.
do. You're gonna get a
right.
beating from that neighbor, and then you're gonna go home, tell your mama what happened, and then she gonna beat you for getting beat by the neighbor and
That's
doing what
right.
you're supposed to do.
But these days, oh no, the neighbor cannot say anything to
You
your
better
kid.
not touch my child.
Or say anything. Oh,
No, you can't say
Right.
nothing.
The mother won't say anything to them, and they don't want you to say anything to them.
Mhm.
So they're just gonna grow up not
Yeah.
respecting anybody,
No,
and
we don't have that community feel
You can't
anymore.
succeed like that,
Right.
because the world will make you respect somebody once you get out here. It will make you
Absolutely.
respect. You might think you don't have to, but you got to respect somebody, a whole lot of somebody. A whole
Absolutely.
lot of somebody. So now, I really like the idea, and this is for people out there that are thinking about writing about different things. I really like that you having a conversation with your husband. And this is where inspiration comes from when we write. That you talking about him and him being from Bed-Stuy led you to write a whole book about it. That's where, people sometimes they grasp for ideas, but the ideas are right where you are in your circle, in your life, people you know. And everybody has experiences. And then if it's fiction, you can make some of it up. I mean, most of it's gonna be made up.
Right.
But it's can be based on real people.
That's right.
But there's stories everywhere. I could write a story right now. I have some neighbors across the street from me that are, I wish did not live in this neighborhood. And because they don't
I'm watching tonight.
I'm looking at them right now. They don't, they don't
You mean in your mind, right?
like a neighborhood. They don't treat it like a neighborhood. They do
Yeah.
everything in their front yard. They barbecue in their front yard. They always have people, cars parked on the street in front of my house. You know, they block my stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, they never heard of the backyard for the barbecue.
no, they don't do anything in the backyard. They have
and the thing about Bedside
Go ahead.
Brooklyn, they barbecued in the front yard. And actually they only have this little bitty space, and they did it when they had like a block party, and they would
right.
come
No,
out.
that's different. That's different. That's
Right.
That's barbecuing in the front yard with a purpose,
Right.
not a pattern. Oh, but anyway, you know, even if I didn't do a whole story on that, you could put that kind of thing in your book as a scenario or a
Yep.
situation. It's just so many things you can write about. And, you know, writing fiction, it really is a struggle for me because I'm not a fiction writer. I'm a nonfiction writer. But I've enjoyed writing the two books that I wrote. I really enjoyed writing them. And I enjoyed the people enjoyed them. So that's, you know, now which book, what's the book number for The Light on Halsey Street for you?
53.
See, I always thought you were in the 30s. So you wow.
Yes,
Listen,
I told you, Vanessa.
Light on Halsey Street is number 53.
I told you Vanessa was the one who had me signing books in the rain when I took over her booth in Baltimore that time.
And because I became aware of you maybe 20 years ago. Is that when you got started?
Yeah, exactly 20 years ago.
Okay.
It is 2023 right now. My first book came out in 2003. Yeah,
Okay.
2003.
So I
And that
became
was
aware of you right
Cormorant.
when you got started.
I was traveling so much that somehow people found out, and we really didn't have social media back then.
No, we didn't know. No, social media wasn't around
We
yet.
kept in touch with each other before social media. We had listservs.
We
and
had
all knew
emails.
each
And
other.
we
all
had
knew each other through emails. We were
Yeah.
emailing back and forth, and we were treating it
Mhm.
like social media.
Correct. You're
right.
right. Absolutely. Yes.
But people were able to get the word out, and people
Really?
would show up for you. People would show up. I think now people feel like they have access sometimes without showing up, but they
Correct.
still, in person, but they still do show up because you had a good turnout. I saw your pictures.
I did. I was so blessed by that, because I'll tell you my What We Found in Hallelujah tour, it did not go as well as I wanted it to go. And it was winter time. It was November going into December, and it was cold. And a couple of times it was rainy at places. But I said, you know what? We're going to dust that off and we're going to do it again. And the people showed up, and I was like, you know what, Lord, thank you. And so it was really, really a blessing. And I was just very thankful at each of my events that some of my readers would show up. And I'll take one that I was really blessed by at Quail Ridge. There was only one person who showed up that was on my mailing list. The other people were on Quail Ridge's mailing list, and they were all people who had not. Now, this is the only place that happened to me during the whole tour, but all of those other people had not read any of my books, and they came and they supported, and they were buying something good. What We Found in Hallelujah and The Light on Halsey Street.
Right.
So it was really a blessing.
But you know what? That's wonderful, because you could have been mad that only one person from your mailing list showed up.
Oh no.
And you could have missed out on some new readers because
That's right.
the venue's mailing list showed up. And
But that's what you want too.
Yeah.
Right, you
Exactly.
You're going on tour to
Yeah.
get new readers.
Right, you wanna
Because
reach
you're
people you
the
haven't reached.
people who read you, most likely they're gonna
they've
buy
already
your book
read your books. You
anyway.
can't really sell to them.
Right. They're gonna buy it anyway.
Anyway.
But
Mhm.
new readers, now
Mhm.
if you get a new reader, now you've got them going, oh, I like what she does. I'm gonna buy her next book, or I'm gonna go back and
Right,
buy
or to
some
get
of
the
her
back
other
link.
books.
Right.
So you definitely want some new readers. So that's what I was so blessed by that at that particular bookstore. But then I would go to other places, and then some of my readers that would come in, they told me they have been reading me since the Rain series, and I was just so blown away. I mean, they showed up. They showed up, and I was just blown away, and I was very grateful because, like I say, it doesn't always have to be that way. And I was just, doing my update. I was letting people know because I wanted authors to understand that,
Yeah.
and because it's not always going to go the way you want it to go, but you just have to keep going the distance. You have to keep
Yes.
showing up, and then you watch and see how it turns around. And
You know
that's-
what? We can
that's
keep
just what
talking to
I
you, but
believe.
Gwen, you got to let us know. It's 8:30, well, 7:30
Yeah,
for you.
it's 7:29. So I did want to tell people one thing about what you just said, Vanessa.
Mhm.
People who have like one book or two books and they think it's gonna explode. And I tell them, look, there are people who have 20 books, 30 books, 40 books,
Right.
50 books. They're still writing. They're
Yes.
building on, they built a foundation and they're building it. And they've been doing it for years and
Yes.
years
Yes.
and years and years.
Yes.
It's not going to be an overnight success. And it's
Mhm.
about building and
And
not just,
even if you have 10 readers, those 10
Right.
readers deserve excellence.
right, they do.
Absolutely.
They do.
And
So
I
Vanessa,
think-
we're at the end of our time.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I want to make sure people know how to get your books. They're available everywhere, I assume.
Yes, everywhere
Uh-huh.
books are sold. You can
Okay.
get it in print, audio, and ebook. And just go grab your copy. And I wanted to say, also, when you get finished reading this book, please, you can go right over to Amazon and write a review or just rate the book. I greatly appreciate it. Reviews do matter. For
They
books.
do
So
matter.
go review The Light on Halsey Street, or like I say, just rate it if you don't want to write the review. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, Vanessa, we're gonna be on the lookout for your next book too, since you have so many coming out. And hopefully we will be able to get you on to talk about that next year
Okay.
sometime.
Okay.
All right, well, have a great evening. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks,
You too.
Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.